Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak on this bill that seeks to create some permanence around the progress that's been made in respect of funding childcare in Canada. I want to talk first about the policy, and then I want to talk a little bit about the politics of it. We've heard a lot of stories here in the chamber tonight, and I could add personal anecdotes about the challenges of childcare. I won't, because I think we've heard many, and I think we all know that that these experiences are common enough that Canadians can appreciate just how stressful it is for families, both in terms of financial stress, but also just the stress of having childcare fall through. We've had our kids in home daycares, and we've had our kids in center daycares, and especially when they were in home daycares. If the childcare provider at home got sick, that would often mean scrambling the night before or the morning of to try and find replacement care. And I do think that is one of the advantages of investing in not for profit center spaces, is that they do provide a degree of reliability that you can't always get when it's one person in their home trying to provide care. It's still a valuable service, and I was grateful to be able to avail myself of that as a parent, and my wife was grateful. But we've also really appreciated the reliability that's come transitioning to center-based care. Why is it that we need public investment in childcare? Well, again, I think we've kind of personalized the issue well enough. The fact of the matter is that for a lot of parents, what they earn when they go to work is not enough to be able to pay a childcare rate that's sufficient to pay people what they need in order to be able to make a living as an early child care educator. It's a classic case of market failure. If it weren't, then at some point over the last 40 or 50 or 60 years, we would have seen very successful businesses crop up to meet demand. But demand is not being met, and it's been chronically unmet because there's a structural problem in the childcare market, which is that too many parents can't make enough money going to work to be able to pay fees that provide enough salary to attract, train, and retain qualified early childhood educators. And that's really why it has been so important for so long for government to get involved. And of course, provincial governments across the country have gotten involved in various ways. Quebec is obviously, I think, the best example of organized, publicly funded care. It's still not perfect, but it's certainly the best that's available in Canada. I come from a province, Manitoba, that has had a lot of investment over the years by NDP governments, frankly, in childcare, and we enjoy the second lowest childcare rates in the country, and we're one of very few provinces to have a pension plan available for early childhood educators. That was true even before this latest round of bilateral deals, which is not by any stretch to say that Manitoba is some kind of childcare paradise. It's hard to find a space. It is still a big expense for families. It's hard to attract and retain workers into the field. All of those problems still persist, despite being in one of the provinces that, on the numbers, is functioning relatively better than some other places in the country in terms of affordability and accessibility. So we need public investment in childcare because the market is not satisfying persistent, long-standing demand. And not only that, but that demand for childcare comes with a number of other problems for the larger economy. And that's why I heard some members earlier tonight reference studies that have been done. I've read similar studies that show that in terms of the economic activity generated by governments investing in childcare, making more spaces available and making them more accessible by making them more affordable, the economic activity that's generated by allowing those parents that want to go into the workforce, we're predominantly women, for whom without any kind of government subsidy for the rate that they pay can't make enough at work in order to justify paying childcare costs and still have something left over at the end of the day. The amount of extra economic activity that generates more than pays for the program, and is an important part of satisfying the demands that we constantly hear from employers who are saying they need access to more workers. Well, this is how we do it. It's certainly one of the ways that we do it, is by ensuring that for those who do want to work, for those parents who do want to work, they can go ahead and get a job and know that they're going to be able to get a spot at a rate that empowers them to go to work and be able to take home enough of their paycheck after childcare fees that it's worthwhile for them to do that. It's not that these recent deals are a panacea. They don't fix all the problems. It's just a good start to something that government should have been doing decades ago. I remember when I first ran in 2015, I was very proud to run on the idea of a national childcare strategy. I watched as Conservatives dismiss the idea out of hand. They said that wasn't the business of government to be supporting childcare or funding childcare. And Liberals, frankly, ran against it too. They said the provinces would never agree. It was just a pipe dream. It was silly NDP thinking. And I'm glad to see that the thinking around that has changed. I know that we are debating this particular legislation and not just resting on our laurels with the bilateral deals that were signed because of the supply and confidence agreement that the NDP has with the government. It's a CASA item. There's a reason why it's there. It's because we didn't want this to be a 5-year experiment that gets truncated. What we wanted was this to be the first 5 years of an ongoing commitment to building up a childcare system that adequately provides for the Canadian workforce so that everyone who wants to go out and get a job and help provide for their family but needs childcare to be able to do it will be able to access a space. We're not there yet. We're not even close to there yet. So I know Conservatives would like to say that somehow New Democrats are pretending that everybody's got a spot now. Couldn't be further from the truth. We're very aware of the problems. Incidentally, I don't know how Conservatives could be blaming this legislation for the current state of affairs. It hasn't even passed yet. And the bilateral deals are only signed about 12 months ago. So the idea that somehow this approach is to blame for the shortage of childcare spaces is just a farce for anyone who's paying attention. This approach hasn't got off the ground yet. And I don't want to just see this get off the ground as some kind of 5-year trial period and then the federal government wipes its hands and walks away. What I want and why this legislation is so important is to see this as the first 5 years of an indefinite program that continues to deliver spaces for Canadian workers on an ongoing basis, not just for the workers' sake, but also for employers' sake and for the sake of their families. So yes, absolutely, there is still a shortage of spaces. There will continue to be a shortage of spaces for a long time because you can't just snap your fingers and create a childcare system overnight, just as you can't snap your fingers and create enough housing to meet the demand that's out there overnight. It's why it's so important that we not waste time debating the value of having a strategy at all and jump full on into talking about what kind of strategy we should have. And it's fair game for the Conservatives to disagree with certain elements of the strategy. For my part, I think it's really important to emphasize nonprofit care. Why is that? Because what I don't want to take hold is a corporate model of childcare. There's a few reasons for that. One is that I think we'll get better value for money if we're not already starting out from the point of view that 10% or more of the public dollars that we spend on childcare are going to have to go to paying corporate profits. And also because when you look at the corporate track record in long-term care and you compare it to nonprofit delivered long-term care, what you see is an appreciable difference in the nature of the care provided. And you get better care out of nonprofit long-term care centers. And I believe that the same incentive structure that's there for for-profit long-term care centers to cut corners will also exist for for-profit childcare centers to cut corners. And that's why it's important that we put an emphasis on not-for-profit care. I've got more to say, Madam Speaker, but I think, unfortunately, my time is up. So hopefully I'll get to some more of this in the question and answer.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. And just to pick up on the member's part of his concerns, I am very much concerned that the Conservative Party, given their track record, really have no intentions on supporting the type of program that we have negotiated with our provinces. And that is the primary reason why we actually see Bill C-35 is because I don't believe the Conservatives can be trusted on the issue. And I'm wondering if the member has any thoughts in regards to the importance of this issue of childcare and the agreements continue on into the years ahead, how important that is.
Yeah, member for Elmwood Transcona.
Thank you. I certainly share that concern. And as members have referenced already, we saw in 2006 that when the Conservatives got the opportunity to upend childcare agreements that had been signed with the provinces, they didn't hesitate for a moment. They went ahead and they ripped those up. Then they instituted the $100 a month for parents, which presumably was the model that they endorsed in order to create the kind of choice that they're talking about tonight. But we saw that that wasn't sufficient. And that was at a time when $100 a month went a lot further than it does now. That did not conduce to creating the kind of childcare system we need in order to meet demand.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Peterborough-Kawartha.
Chair, and thank you to my honourable colleague for his intervention. And I just want to point out in his riding, 76% of children are in a childcare desert in Manitoba. But I wanted to do this. I wasn't planning on it, but I got an email while I was doing this, and it says, "Dear Michelle, it's 11:45. I'm sitting watching CPAC live as you are there yourself. Please mention and ask about ECE workers that are still out of work due to vaccine mandates and would like to get back to work." So my question to my honourable colleague from Bonnie Bon, watching at home, will he help ensure this?
Yeah, member for Elmwood Transcona.
Well, I would just remind the member that the vaccine mandates that would have put ECE workers out of work in Ontario would have been done by the Conservative government of Doug Ford. And I would encourage her to contact her colleagues in the Conservative government there to talk about what kind of redress might be available for ECE workers that had to leave their job as a result of Conservative-imposed vaccine mandates in Ontario.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The member for, oh my gosh, Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan. It's getting late.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I guess at a basic level, I struggle to understand the fairness of taxing all families and subsidizing some child care choices and not others. People make a variety of different kinds of choices. They have a variety of different approaches to child care. Some of those reflect their circumstances, the kind of jobs they have, choices about division of labor, these sorts of things. How is it fair that a family with that does not use or isn't able to access state daycare, why should they have to subsidize somebody else who made a different choice? Why don't we simply give support equally to all families and allow them to make their own choices and use those resources in order to facilitate those choices?
The honourable member for Elmwood Transcona.
Well, two things that I would say briefly. One is that the Harper government did do that with $100 a month, and it didn't create the kinds of spaces that are required in order to meet demand, both for the sake of Canadian working families and also for employers who want to see more workers available in the labor market. And then I would add to that one of the biggest beneficiaries of the childcare program are actually employers. And New Democrats have been arguing for some time that Canada shouldn't have a bottom of the barrel corporate tax rate at 15%. We're quite open to the idea of having a higher corporate tax rate and ensuring that it's the employers who are going to be benefiting from having more workers available in the economy who are helping to pay for these childcare investments.